joining from. That would be awesome. Hi, Emily from Waynesburg. I think you've been on every day this week, Emily and Anna. Welcome, Anna. Good to see you both, or know you're both here. Can't see anybody really, but who else has joined us? Hi, Kat Tracy from Daytona Beach, Florida, and Lawan. Hi, Lawan from WDC, Washington, D.C., and Maria from Massachusetts. Welcome. Some of you, all of you, some of you are doing, most of you are doing it, but could you just do me a favor, everybody who's posted, and check and make sure you have all panelists and attendees, because I'm seeing some that are just to panelists. And this is important for the interactive parts of the presentation that we'll have later. Hi, Amelia. Welcome, Pamela and Norma. Hi, Keela. Hi, Maria. Emily's moving on. Michelle, nice to see you again. Hi, Eileen Crum from Wichita and Lynette from Lynchburg, Virginia. We've got people from all time zones in the country so far. I think we got West, East, Central. We're just going to wait another 30 seconds before we get started so that things can, before I introduce our presenters for today, just so that we start at 12 instead of a little before 12. It's nice to see you all today. It's cold here. I don't know how it is where you all are. You know, Julie's in Florida, so it's not too bad there. Maria Martinez, how is it in Washington State? All right, well, it's 12 o'clock, and so we're going to get started right on the dot. I'm delighted to be here today with Julie Leonard and Dwayne Dixon Jr. for developing the performance of a lifetime, the All Stars Project in after-school development. And it's a critical topic that we were just talking before you all joined about how after school doesn't get enough credit in the general. It doesn't get enough respect, but it's really, really critical to children's development and people becoming who they are. If you think about it, think about what you did after school and think about how that's connected to who you are now. I'm sure that everybody will make that connection. Hi, Morgan from Sheboygan, and Tammy, welcome, Tammy. Just to remind people who've been here and to let those of you who this is your first time know that we do want you to engage with the presentation. So there are two ways to do that. The first one you're already practicing, which is the chat. And again, you need to make sure it's going, just do me a favor, humor me and check and make sure that it's going to all panelists and attendees, because otherwise the panelists are the only ones that'll see it. So we're delighted to have you. And the second way that you can engage is to raise your hand. And if you raise your hand, then Andrew, who's in the background, handling technical things, will unmute you, and then you'll need to unmute yourself, and then you'll be able to speak. So that's the ground rules for ways to engage. The other thing is that whenever Be Strong Families does anything, we have agreements, and the agreements are in recognition that we co-create this safe space together. So if you are okay with agreeing to these agreements, do like people in the chat are doing and just say, I agree. I agree that I'll speak from my own experience. I agree that I'll treat other people the way I want to be treated. And I agree that I'm going to be here now. That's perfect. All right. So welcome, Dwayne and Julie. And I'm delighted to turn it over to you. I'm going to go into the background because as I do when we have two presenters, and I'm looking forward to your presentation.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Kathy. We're very excited to be here. And thank you all for having us. Welcome to the title of this webinar is Developing the Performance of a Lifetime. So at the All Stars Project, we talk about performance in a lot of different ways. And when we talk about performance, most people think about dancers or singers or movie stars. And then once the curtain closes or the lights go off or the credits roll, people assume that those people cease to be performers and that their performance stops there, or that ours does. Now, we are performers. We're performing every moment of our lives, from the moment that our eyes open in the morning, or even before that. You can pretend you're performing as somebody who's still asleep. Performance is a tool that allows us to do things and say things that we've never done or said before. So we want to actually practice some of this with you. I can talk about performance all day long, and Julie can attest to it. I can talk till I'm blue in the face, but we want to do some performing with you all as an ensemble right now. So Kathy alluded to this great point that we have an opportunity to use the chat. So as a group, we're going to perform as an ensemble to collectively do something. So what we want to do is collectively count to the number 20, only using the chat. So the way it's going to work is I'm going to enter the chat and I'll write the number 1. And then someone will write the number 2, 3, so on and so forth. But here's the kicker. If we get 2 of the same number, so if there are multiple number 2s or multiple number 5s, we have to start back over from 1. So I'm going to go, and whenever you feel compelled, add your number to the chat. And remember, like Kathy said, make sure it's going to panelists and all attendees. Oh, we gotta start back over. All right, from 1, here we go. We got a couple of 2s. All right, let's go back to 1. All right, we're gonna take it from the top. Ready? So now we gotta figure out, how do we work together as a team? Let's try it this time. Back from the top. All right, now we're gonna see if we can get to 10. I see a lot of people are excited and jazzed, and I love the participation. We're gonna try it this time and try to focus on, how can I support somebody else? Let's see if we can get to 10. Somebody has a good idea. From the top.
Nice.
Ooh, that was the furthest we've ever gotten so far. All right, we're gonna try it one more time. So we have an opportunity. Let's see if we can get further, at least further than we've gotten. I think the highest we've gotten is 6 so far. So I'm not gonna start. Somebody else can type 1.
I just have to tell you, the first time you got all the way up to 9 before you went back.
There we go. All right. Really last time, because this is actually getting good. All right, so I'm gonna start with 1, and then let's go. Now we're just counting out of order. So we're going to be doing a lot of different things today. And one thing that we do is giving a virtual round of applause. This is actually applause in sign language. So I can't see the rest of you, but give yourselves a round of applause. Thank you so much. So really quick, use the chat or raise your hand and Andrew can unmute you. Someone share, what was that like for you?
What was hard about it, if people have?
Oh, I see someone said, Lauren P says, it brought me back to my days as a theater teacher. Love it. And Tamara says, I found myself wanting to be able to talk to everyone else to make a plan. I like that. What about somebody else? What was challenging about it? Kalia says it was unorganized. What else was challenging about this? Roy says it was hard because we didn't have a plan of communication, and this was the only way of communicating. So we're realizing that we're losing a lot of different things that on this virtual space, and the opportunity to look at somebody, to see and to feel and to be there with them. It's much harder virtually because you can't hear your neighbors, their breathing or feel their body language. Very good point, Lauren. So these are a part of the things that we're doing in this new space, learning how difficult it is to work virtually. And these are some of the environments that our young people are growing up in. So we want to make sure that we're taking an opportunity to realize how challenging this might be for them. So I want to continue here. The mission of the All Stars Project is to transform the lives of youth and poor communities using the developmental power of performance in partnership with caring adults. Now, that's a lot of words and it doesn't really mean much until you begin to break it down. But Julie and I wanted to share a quick video to help further introduce you to this mission. It's very short, and this was created by some of our partners as a public service announcement. Let's take a look.
Today, more than ever, we need to come together to address poverty, racism, and social injustice. Because every child deserves a pathway to opportunity. Because the business community can help young people work toward a better future. Because the magic of performance gives everyone a chance to grow. That's why the All Stars Project reaches thousands of kids every year, and why caring adults from all walks of life are actively involved. Come join a growing number of Americans who are saying,
I'm an all-star.
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 So become an all-star today. Visit allstars.org/get involved.
Okay. Hi, everybody. Good to be with you, and good to see. In the video piece you just saw, one of the lines is, because the magic of performance helps everyone to grow. And Dwayne and I had to give some thought to what kind of collective performance exercise we could do when we didn't see anybody, when we had the chat. And as you can see, whenever anyone is trying to do something as an ensemble, that's a performance of something that's unlike what you might normally do on a webinar. It starts to create a particular kind of environment for interactivity and growth. So I want to tell you a little bit more about the All Stars Project, and by way of doing so, just say a few things about myself. I first met the organization as a volunteer 34 years ago in the late 1980s, and that was in New York City, which is my original hometown. I'm in Chicago now. And at the time when I first started volunteering, the organization was completely unfunded and had no paid staff. It was a multiracial grouping of community activists, organizers, volunteers, teachers, and artists, many of whom had been organizing in communities, starting in the 1960s and continuing through the 1970s and into the 1980s. We're still trying to partner with, young people and parents and communities, and realizing, some of the continued hopes and dreams of the movements of the 1960s, because as we all know, we've known for a long time, and we know more than ever that work isn't done. So after a couple of decades of volunteering and really All Stars becoming a passion, I left New York City and moved to Chicago to partner with the All Stars Chicago City leader, David Cherry, to co-found All Stars Project of Chicago. I have to give a slight aside, because as some people might see in the background with a bright light, and I apologize for that bright light, I actually happen to be in Florida right now, which, for those of you who are in Chicago in the Midwest, I know I'm very lucky to be here right now, but I do live in Chicago. All Stars currently operates in 5 cities. So in addition to New York City, where we were founded, in Chicago, we're in San Francisco Bay Area, Newark, New Jersey, and Dallas, Texas. We, again, starting out with being completely unfunded, we now raise $10 million annually in private funding from more than 400 individuals, corporations, and foundations. We used to be able to say we have always been 100% privately funded, but our kind of inside statement now is that we did get a PPP loan during the pandemic, which is a government fund. So with the exception of that, we are 100% privately funded, but we're very happy for the PPP loan. And we involve 20,000 young people annually in our programs. And our programs, as you saw a little bit mentioned in the video, what we're focusing on is this thing called development. And when we think about development, it's something that maybe if you look at a young person, or if you look at a colleague or a family member, someone who's developing or developed, it's kind of easy to see, but it's kind of hard to describe. So to get at that, I thought we would just take a minute and maybe people throw some stuff into the chat. When you think about a person developing or being developed, what kind of words pop into your mind? Growing in skills, right? Growth. Journey, I love that one. Maturing. Change. Evolving. This gorgeous, I mean, what I love about this, just as a thing, and Kathy started off talking about after school and after school development, which we are going to weave throughout this presentation. What I love though, and this thing about after school development, is that the words that people are giving, advancement, positive trajectory, self-discovery, we're not talking about something that's cognitive, or this thing about something being inside someone's head, or an acquisition of knowledge, or even learning per se, which learning is very, very important, but learning and development are not the same thing. And one of the places where development is really most ignited for people happens to take place in outside of school and after school. And all of the All-Stars after school development programs use performance as a tool for growth and development, which is why we're going to weave in the performance throughout the presentation. To give you a couple examples, our flagship program is called the All-Stars Talent Show Network, where young people between the ages of 5 and 25 produce and perform in hip hop talent shows in their neighborhood auditoriums. Every young person who auditions makes the show. So it's not a talent search, but it's about giving young people the chance to get onto stage and perform. And if they don't want to perform on stage, singing, dancing, or rapping, they can perform behind the scenes as producers and ushers and MCs and lighting and sound designers. Another core program is our Development School for Youth. We call it the DSY, where young people learn to perform professionally in partnership with the business community. And they go through a series of leadership training experiences and with paid summer internships. And the two programs that I mentioned obviously have changed and altered, given that we're all 100% virtual right now, as most or many of you are. So these programs are kind of looking slightly different, and we've also have a series of new programs which we've designed specifically for the pandemic. And we are thought and action leaders in the emerging field of after-school development. And one of our key goals, in addition to producing our own programs, which again, we are going to come back to towards the end of the presentation, is to elevate the appreciation, the recognition, the investment, the research, and the study of the unique and vital role that after-school development plays in the lives of young people.
Definitely. Thank you, Julie. I wanted to take a quick second to share some of my history as well with the All-Stars Project. I work now, I'm the Associate Director for Youth and Community Youth and After School Development in Chicago, but I've also worked for the All-Stars Project of New Jersey for a number of years, where I'm also an alumni of all of the youth programs that Julie's talking about. So the All-Stars Talent Show Network, the Development School for Youth, and everything else that we've done over the last few years. And being a part of the All-Stars Project has allowed me to see how performance has played a part in my life even before I knew it. I grew up in Newark, New Jersey, and I didn't know, but I know now that I grew up as a poor young person. And I didn't know because I was in a poor neighborhood, and everybody that I lived with and went to school with had the same issues and the same challenges, and we all lived the same. So I didn't see a difference. And my father used performance all the time with us. And I didn't see it as that as a young person. Every few months, there would be a game that we loved. Our favorite game was called Flashlight. And my father would perform as the game show host. So he would explain to my sister and I that we had 20 minutes to get up, get in the shower, get dressed, get some food in our system, put some Vaseline on your face, and get ready for school, all only with the light of a flashlight. Now, me as a 7-year-old kid, I was very competitive. This was a very exciting game. I just wanted to win. I didn't understand what was really happening. Years later, I realized that every few months, we weren't able to pay our electricity bill. And instead of trying to explain this to a 7-year-old, my father used a game, and it made it fun. It took the negative stigma that now sits in it. You know, poverty has this negative stigma in our communities, and he took it away by using performance and allowed it to be fun and me to fall into a world that didn't exist before. So our young people are put in situations all the time where they're forced to use performance and they don't even know it yet. A lot of people often say, well, performance doesn't play a role in the lives of poor young people. And we beg to differ. It absolutely does. For anybody who's a performer, to feel confident in your role, whether it's an actor or if you're performing on a field as a football team or anything, to feel confident, you need to rehearse, you need to practice, you need to see somebody else do it. And our young people are often put in situations, we say, our young people need jobs. I need to get them a job so they can go out into the world. And that's a play that they've never been to before. They've never read the script for it. They've never attended any of the rehearsals. And yet we expect them to go succeed and play these leading roles in these new plays. So at the All Stars Project, we take the time to rehearse these uncomfortable moments where young people have conversation with people who don't quite look like them. They actually probably wouldn't have ever met these people anywhere else in their lives. So they can become comfortable having these conversations so it becomes almost second nature. So before we go on, I'd love to, get a feel for how are you hearing this? How do you see the role that performance has played in your life, if it's played a part at all? This is amazing. Thank you, Lauren. Somebody else, share. What are you thinking? How are you hearing what we're saying and how the way that performance plays a role in our lives?
Do people think that performance is beneficial to young people who either your own children or children in your programs? Expressing feelings. Mm-hmm.
Absolutely. What about the connection? Julie here we go. Performing as a parent with motivating my kids to love school. Interesting. Thank you, Roy and Amanda. How do you think this could be beneficial to, like Julie's saying, to the young people and figuring out the ties between performance and development? Got a couple more great things coming through the chat. Yes, it worked with my children and it helped them get through tough times and working on teamwork. Absolutely. I was very, very shy as a child, and I saw on stage in a musical, Free to Be You and Me, my favorite musical and for children, and I thought that she looked like she was having so much fun. I joined the musical, and the following year, I learned how to express myself, how to speak in front of people, and how to act like I'm not uncomfortable when I need to lead a group. Theater made a huge impact on my growth as a young person. Absolutely. Thank you for that. And I'll read the last one. It plays an important role in our lives, especially right now during the pandemic, when we have to wear different hats as parents, teachers, activists, etc. That is such a great segue and so very true. Thank you so much. So some of the programs that Julie was talking about in this new space, as we've gone virtual, it's been very challenging. Throughout this pandemic, we all know that it's challenging for adults to learn some of these new performances, whether it's the performance of being on time. We know how challenging that can be for people, or even the professional costume. These things were challenging before a pandemic. So now that we're 100% virtual, how do our young people learn these soft skills that you might not learn in school? How to look somebody in the eye when you're having a conversation, how to dress professionally. How do I become professional in a Zoom screen? Fixing my screen so I'm not looking at the ceiling or you can see me and have good lighting. So these are some of the things that we're teaching and working with young people in partnership with these caring adults. And these caring adults are corporate executives that lead workshops where they talk about performance, and they show you and teach you how to ask questions, like we're talking about, how to make eye contact and show up professionally. So these things, as we all know, everybody knows somebody in their life that's always late to everything. And when they show up, you're like, I knew she was going to be late. That's just how she is. And our young people are learning this at a very young age. So I would love, if I learn these things at 16, 17 years old, to have an opportunity to succeed later in life. So some of the things that we've been working on with our young people are finding new ways to work with them and find out and take the stigma out of what we're talking about. So there's no criticism, there's no right or wrong, but looking at things like a performatory decision. So one thing we talk about with our young people is, as we've been saying, the performance of being on time. And once our program starts, they're asked to come back a second time for the next workshop. The same way that if you're approaching a train and you're a minute late when the train pulls off, it'd be kind of weird for you to be upset at the train and shaking your fist, but you wait for the next one, or you get to the next one on time. So these are a part of some of the things that we're sharing with our young people to help them learn and grow without the negative stigma and the criticism that comes with it. How do you all think about how this might help young people grow in this new space, whether or not they're interested in working at some of these corporations, but using performance in this new virtual capacity?
People are really writing some good long responses, so it's taking people a while, which I love. One example I want to give while people are chatting, if it's okay, Dwayne, I was thinking about it because when we bring together, oh wait, Dwayne, why don't you repeat the question?
Yes, my question was, how do you see this being beneficial in this new quarantined life? So sharing with young people, whether or not they're interested in working on their professional attire and performance, but in this new space, how do you see performance playing a role in this virtual capacity?
And I was going to add that when we bring together business executives and young people from our neighborhoods, again, not typically groups of people that come together. Certainly, I know people here all around the country. I live in Chicago, and the young people in our programs, who live on the south side and the west side of Chicago, they say, well, I can see the Loop. I can see those buildings in downtown from where I live. I can look up State Street, but I have no idea what's going on in those buildings. And frankly, I don't even think I'm welcome in those buildings. And you can also say for the executives who work in those buildings that maybe they care about what's happening with young people because they're reading the papers, but they wouldn't know how in a million years to connect with young people. So we bring those two groups together and use performance to support young people to perform in professional environments, but it goes the other way too, because we're also teaching the executives to perform in ways where they can build partnerships and give things to young people. So now I think, Dwayne, if some things are coming into the chat.
Yeah. I love what Kathy says in the chat that, not only can the young people learn from our business professionals, but young people can teach people about this technological performance. Our programs are so very much bridge building programs. And when people think about it, it's often like from a mentor perspective, like I've got this information that I'm going to give to you. And all of our programs are bridges both ways for our business partners to give to our young people and for our young people to connect and learn and teach our business adults as well. Got one that says, I think performance is incredibly important. The ability to lead a meeting that's engaging and that includes everyone is a skill that I learned in theater. Improv is also a great way for people young and old to get to know one another and break the ice. Absolutely. Improv is a huge component of all of the All-Stars programs, and it also levels the playing field. People come into workshops often with their societal roles. I'm an adult. I've been through this. I've gotten this far, so you should listen to me. And young people come in with their, youthful young person performance. And once we begin to do improv, it makes everyone really uncomfortable and it makes it really awkward, which now there's no, you're an adult and I'm a kid. It's just two people feeling very weird about this guy who's asking them to do these weird games. So it definitely does. Roy and Amanda said, virtually, it can help them think outside the box and reach a global audience with their performance. Wow. There's some great notes in the chat. Siobhan says, performance gives our youth a real sense of belonging. Sometimes it's the only way they can stay engaged. It's very important. That's so very true, especially given what Julie was talking about, our young people feeling like they don't belong in certain places, whether it's in the Loop or in any downtown area from so many different cities. I'm going to read one more. Tamara says, I've worked with some kids on improv, and yes, they all thought it was very awkward and pointed out the whole time that our lives are improv. Absolutely. Every moment of every day. You don't know what somebody's going to ask, and yet you're answering all of these questions. We're improvising right now. Great eye. Thank you for that. So now, as Julie said, we are 100% virtual. So we're running these programs all online, which gives us an amazing opportunity. Before, the programs in Chicago would obviously only work for young people who'd be able to get there. So it limited the amount of young people, one, that we could have, and the young people who could apply. Now that we're virtual, young people from anywhere, California, Texas, New Jersey, New York, can all apply for these programs and be in the same class and grow and learn from other young people who don't live near them and have different life experiences. So anybody from anywhere, not just Chicago students, as long as they're between the ages of 16 and 21, can apply for these free after-school programs. And for me, I think one of my favorite parts about the program is that we're not a best and brightest program. There's no GPA requirement. And I'm so happy about that, because if it was, I wouldn't have made it. I was a young person who often sat in the back, and teachers didn't assume that I didn't have much to say. So they began to treat me like I didn't have anything to say. So I started to believe it. So I would sit there and not speak unless somebody asked me a specific question. And even sometimes when we ask students questions, we really don't want to hear the answer. When we say, what do you think you're doing? That really just means stop. So our young people have this opportunity in this virtual space to continue to grow and learn and develop. And there is no GPA requirement. Any young person can do it as long as they want to be here and they're showing up every week. So I think Andrew has dropped a link in the chat to our program applications, but if not, can he drop it again? Just so you can take a look at it. You'll find all the information on our programs. And also, feel free to forward this to any young person that you know between the ages of 16 to 21. And we're also in a great space. Over the next 4 weeks, Julie, myself, and the rest of our team can lead presentations similar to this one for other groupings, whether it's youth program organizations, after-school organizations, or even schools. So if you know anybody who'd be interested in this, thank you, Andrew, for dropping that link. Definitely follow the link, check out what we do, and share this with them.
Kind of before we move on, I just want to see if anyone had any more questions about this particular program, the Development School for Youth. Because I wanted to share that one thing that kind of blew me away is that when we were all on the ground in our programs and we were all in our 5 different cities and every city had its own Development School for Youth. And yes, the young people do really miss getting on a train or a bus and kind of leaving where they live and kind of going downtown and walking into the buildings. And you do lose that, sadly, so they do miss that. However, what the Chicago kids, for example, loved is meeting the Dallas kids and the San Francisco Bay Area kids. And we did a giant town hall so that all the kids could meet each other. And so that kind of ties in right with the question Lauren's offering is, how have you modified your programming to be virtual? So we basically started combining the classes across the country. So this year, the programs that we had in San Francisco, Dallas, and Chicago are one class. New York and New Jersey are another class. As Dwayne said, now you could be in Colorado or Kansas City or Massachusetts and be in a program. And so the young people love meeting kids in other cities, just in the same way that we're all on conference calls all the time with people, our peers or colleagues in other cities. Now the young people are part of the world in that way, where they're getting to meet people who live outside their neighborhoods. So that's been one thing. The other thing is that, and this kind of connects in with the questions of considering a younger age, who knows what will happen. Traditionally, the thing about being between 16 and 21 is that in the on-the-ground programs, everyone who successfully graduates from the program is placed in a 6-week full-time paid summer internship at one of our corporate partners. So the age has to do with being able to work. Because of the virtual situation, the internships are not exactly the same. We are running an internship program this summer. And some of the people in our DSY will go into that program, and so will other young people that we have connections to. But that's where the age requirement comes from. The last example that I want to give before we just transition a little bit more into some conversations about after school and development is, I'll just never forget, going back to what I said. I mean, Dwayne gave a lot of examples about, the on-time performance. And again, so a young person kind of continues to come, let's say, late, whether it's on Zoom or in person, and we work with a young person on the on-time performance. And it's not a critique, it's just, hey, this is the performance in the business world that you have to be on time. And I just remember like one of our business partners saying to us once, I was talking to so-and-so, a young person in the program, and when I was talking to him, I really couldn't tell if he was understanding me because he was giving me a blank stare. And again, that kind of dynamic in a workplace situation could really cause a problem for the young person, because the supervisor is like, this person is not listening to me, or this person doesn't get what I'm saying. And we realized in that situation that literally the young person, because of not having been in that professional situation, just didn't know the performance of nodding his head, literally as something as simple as that, so that it was a kind of conveyance that there was something going on. And it wasn't a critique of the young person, but there's just these subtle performance bag of tricks that we all need. And those of us who are having different life experiences learn those performances perhaps at an earlier age. And so what we do is we're taking young people and we're continuously putting them onto new stages. And I want to come back just for a second to a comment that we play with this all the time, and Dwayne might have something to say about this too, but of the question of authenticity. Well, if you're performing, aren't you fake? And it's a wonderful, wonderful conversation to have. But one of the ways that I see it, and I think a lot of people have spoken to it, we all are performing all the time. We're always ourselves. We are never not going to be ourselves, both how we look and what our history is. And we always have that. Where our power is our capacity to make decisions when based on the situation that we're in, of how we want to connect with somebody in a positive and growthful way. And so I think that that whole dialogue that happens within performance, like, well, isn't that fake, is just such an interesting question. And we don't want people to hold back growth. And Dwayne, I don't know if you have anything to say on that.
Absolutely. The idea, or that things are fake, or you can't be who you are at all times, is very interesting to me, because I'm so many different things. I'm a Black man who grew up in Newark, New Jersey. I'm a nerd by culture. I love Marvel and all things nerdy. I'm also an older brother, and those are three very different performances. And while one situation might call for a particular one, if my younger sisters call me, I'll show up in a big brother performance, which is much different than the performance I'm giving right now. But it doesn't mean that I'm not still the same other person. At any given moment, you can decide who you're going to be for this particular moment. And I'm deciding my performance in this moment is going to look like this. It might sound like this. So we're giving opportunities for young people to learn that they are who they are and who they're not, all at the same time. And if we only treated people based on, you can only act a certain way based on the things that you've done before, well, no one would have ever done anything, because as a baby, we don't treat babies that all they can ever do are the things you're doing right now. All you can do is cry, drink a bottle, and go to sleep. No one would ever do anything. You wouldn't become a lawyer or doctor or a king or queen or even the president. So we give people opportunities to do things they've never done before, say things they've never said before. And this idea of being fake, I love it, because performance, while it is, a bit fake at first, it becomes that way after a certain point. So if I'm pretending that I'm really excited about something, after a while, it really becomes true. I actually am excited about it, or I'm having a great time when I'm pretending. Does that make any sense? Tiffany, Tracy has a question. Do you present to parents, for example, Head Start, family engagement discussions? We will present, well, Julie and I can attest to that. We present to any and everyone. So parents, families, young people, students, teachers. We've had a number of different opportunities to present in front of everyone who will take an opportunity, because our programs, while the young people in the programs are 16 to 21, development doesn't stop once you're 21, or you don't turn 13 and, well, now you're done growing, you're done developing, you'll know everything that you're going to know. So there are also virtual opportunities outside of our program for people of all ages, and continuing to create that social etiquette, if you will.
That's a gorgeous comment, Tracy, the last one about to pretend play is important. And that just kind of actually brings me back. It's kind of a nice segue into talking a little bit more about after school, is just the importance of play and growth. And it is really heartbreaking that, you're allowed to play like from up until like age 5, basically, in terms of this. And then all of a sudden everything becomes serious and you have to like learn and you have to know and you have to act out your role. And play is just where discovery happens. It's where joy happens. And, we want to bring play back into life, not just for young people, but for all of us. And I kid you not that, in the All-Stars, because we're an improv and performance-based organization, in all of our staff meetings, especially in the pandemic, have been doing so much play because it's part of what's producing sanity to keep our creativity going and to have joy and to continue to get through the day. And, it is very sad that just young people especially with maybe a not very helpful focus always on test scores, and that you've got to get more and more narrow in terms of how you help young people get good at math or reading. Actually, play is a very important part of how anybody is going to develop and, be interested in developing those skills. So just thank you for bringing up play. And that kind of just segues into, this question of the role of after school and after school development. So to start this off, so for any of you who either have been in after school programs yourself, have children in after school programs, or are in organizations when you're running after school programs, what are some of the things that you are observing that is happening in after school environments that is helpful to young people? One-on-one. Mm-hmm. One of the great things I think that comes out of one-on-one help is that there's particular kinds of relationships that get built in after school. And that's actually really goes right into Lauren's point, that knowing people outside of your family unit, because one thing that we all know that we need to get through life is the capacity to build and leverage relationships. When things get hard, when we hit a wall, when there's something that we need to do that we don't know how to do, that the capacity of being able to lean on somebody or ask somebody for help or go to somebody, that is a very important development skill, as we say. Right, so allowing socialization to be with other groups of people who you might not be in the same group in school. Right, the thing about drama and theater being a particular kind of after school. One of the other things that I love about the after school field is that it's not 100% true, but it's true to a large degree, that it's voluntary for a lot of young people in the sense that they pick what they're interested in. They're interested in theater or in art or in STEM or in robots or reading. that it creates a certain kind of motivation. And actually, just as an aside, there have been some very, very, lots of studies everyone knows on mobility from poverty. And one of the most interesting longitudinal studies that was done on social mobility in poverty was done by a wonderful researcher named Kathy Eden. And what they discovered was that the single most determinant of whether or not young people ended up doing somewhat better in life if they moved from a low income area with lack of opportunity and lack of resources into an area that had more opportunity and more resources was if the young person had a passion project, something that made them want to get out of bed in the morning. And yes, they had to go to school, but then after school, they could go to their magic tricks or go to one girl had, carrier pigeons on her roof. But that those were some of the variables that they deserved that were some indicators of future success in life. So again, these are the kinds of things that are easier to be experimental with in the after school space, these kinds of things. And of course, after school is part of the educational ecosystem. You need both. Young people have to learn things that you learn in school. But again, learning and development are not the same thing. And it is hard. Some kinds of school-based learning can be acquired tastes for young people. And in order to connect with that, there has to be development happening and a sense of seeing possibilities for a person's life and knowing that you have some ways to act upon them. So I'm seeing what Kathy is saying. So one of the most important healing aspects of creativity is being able to express. Yep, right. So there's a lot more freedom to express oneself in these less structured settings of developmental after school. So in addition to creating and offering our own programs, we invest significant resources, the All-Stars Project, in building and advancing the field of after school. And how do we do that? Well, one thing is we are just completing a 5-year partnership with Southern Methodist University and the Center for Research on Evaluation, where we have developed an entirely new evaluative tool that actually measures development in young people. I mean, one of the things that we've always bucked against in the All-Stars is that, and by being privately funded, we've been able to do this fairly successfully, is that we didn't want to tie success in our programs to, based on them being in your program, young people, did they right away start doing better in school? Did they come out of the criminal justice system? Did they get a job? Those life goals are very, very important. But if you're too focused on that, you're missing the qualitative things that are actually happening in after school environment that gives people the skills and the talents and the capacities to go places in life. So the first phase of this study was measuring our own programs and having some results on our own programs. But the goal over time and in the not too distant future is to give this tool to the field so that all of you and all of our colleagues can turn back to their funders and say, well, we're going to show you what our programs do, and we're going to show you how they work. And it's really a gift to give to the field that we can start saying, we'll take a test, but we'll take the metrics test on what it is that we're saying is happening in our programs, not necessarily what people think should be happening in our programs. So research. Second thing is supporting the development of practitioners. So if you work in an after school program or in a youth development program, and quite frankly, even in an educational institution, but there is a lot of degree programs to be a teacher, and there's degree programs to be a social worker, but there aren't degree programs being offered in after school development. And in fact, there are best practices, there are methodologies, there is research, and these are exposure and professional development opportunities that people in the field should have, given that we are on the front lines of some of the most serious crises that are happening in our country and our communities right now. And everyone we know working on the field of after school right now is saying, we know we need to do more for and with our kids. They're in trouble. What more can we do? So we are in the second year of offering free and very low cost online courses and workshops in Afterschool. One of them is a one-off workshop called Creating Developmental and Empowering Conversations with Young People. Dwayne is on the faculty of that workshop, and it focuses a lot on using performance with young people to create new kinds of conversations and to support youth voice. And it is really needed in the virtual space, but it's also relevant to the in-person space. And then we also offer a course called The Future of Afterschool, which is a more intensive 5-part course that is really a deep dive into some of the underlying methodologies in our field. And what I'm going to do in a moment is I'll do it now, is that the course schedule is just being finalized, so we don't have it yet, but that's where on our website you will find it. And check back there probably in about 2 or 3 weeks about the courses. And if you're interested, you can register for them. The other thing that we do is that we have an after-school development working group, and they're based in the three of the cities that we operate, Chicago, Dallas, and New Jersey. But given that we're virtual, people are now joining our after-school development working group from all over the country. And this brings together just dozens of, again, practitioners in the field. And there's a lot of people in schools. There's people in the police department in these working groups, all people who know that we're trying to figure out how to support young people. And I do find that very interesting at a moment of, a lot of, distrust and significant dysfunction in the relationship between police and our communities, which we all knew about and were reminded of in some very gruesome ways this year. Well, there are on the ground people in police departments in our cities, and I know they're out there who are saying, okay, what can we do to build better relationships with young people and support young people? And so the working groups are open to people. We also hold an annual conference, After School Development Conference, once a year, and we're looking in 2022 to make that virtual, since we can't be doing them on the ground right now. So any questions or other thoughts on building the field of after-school development? Well, people might have some, but Dwayne, I think that we probably have a few more minutes, speaking of wanting to focus on development, to show our last video. That's a good question. So Kathy is saying, what's the role of parents in building after school development? Well, if there's any parents, I don't know, I know sometimes there's parents on this call, and if so, Kathy, I'll toss that question back out to the group. If there's parents listening to this, if parents have some thoughts about that. I could say some things, but I am interested in how parents see this.
And while I think one of the parents might be crafting a response now, and while they do that, I do think that we'll have a moment to share our final 1-minute video. And this is something we've been sharing throughout this virtual opportunity, continuing to find new ways to support young people to try new things. So they get development tips throughout the program. We've recorded one of these tips for you to take a look at some of the things that we've been supporting young people to do over the last 10 months.
Hello everyone, my name is Priscilla from the Dallas team, and this is development tip number 2. Have someone teach you something that you don't know. Think of all the things you already know. Now, think about something new you can learn. A skill, a new game, a song. Ask someone to teach you something new. Try even asking someone younger than you. Practice not being a know-it-all. Practice curiosity. As an example, I had a friend of mine teach me how to take care of my new plant. That one right behind me. It made me feel really accomplished to see that I'm able to keep it vibrant and green. Learn something new and tell us about it. What did you learn and who taught you? Did it take you a long time to learn it? Was it hard? Silly? Share your experience by writing about it, creating a poem, making a short video, taking pictures of the new thing you tried, and send those to the sod@allstars.org email address. In the subject line, write your city and the development tip number. Follow us to see if it'll get you featured. We can't wait to see what all you discover.
Yeah, I think it's interesting what people are saying. And, this is in the time that we have left, I'll say a few things. I mean, I think that I want parents to feel empowered, whatever context that they're in, with, school officials and stakeholders in the education system, to not be shy about, advocating in the sense of the importance of young people being able to be in after school as part of what will help them succeed in school. During the pandemic, in some cities, we saw that boards of education took that opportunity to say, well, we can't fund any of the after school programs that are happening because we really have to focus on, making sure that our kids are learning. And that was a mistake, because you're giving up on this incredible network of after school practitioners and organizations who know what motivates young people and who know how to support some ways for young people to learn virtually. So there you go, school as a support for after school. So I think one is parents are welcome to our after school development working groups, because I think this can help with that. So there are parents in those groups as young people as well. But I always want to have parents feel very empowered to, not back down when it comes to understanding that after school is not an afterthought, and it's not something that's expendable. It really is a vital part of the totality of what makes a young person grow and succeed in their lives.
Yeah, I mean, Julie and Dwayne, this was fabulous. And I think that I think I said school is a support for after school, but I think there's also after school as a support for school, because school is performance. A lot of school is performing, right? I mean, you're graded on your performance in school constantly. So if after school could teach kids that school is performance, and what is school? I mean, you're getting job skill performance, but how do you perform in school in order to be able to get to the next level? That's a really important, really important. I feel like that's kind of some of what I'm vibing with you about, like parent cafes and what we do. We're realizing during the pandemic that it's an essential service, because it's what keeps people going. And I think that's true with you as well, in terms of after school is what keeps kids, if it can keep kids motivated. I mean, online school, if it can keep them motivated, keep them energized, keep them feeling positive in their lives, keep them feeling like they can do things, then it's, it's an essential service. It's not something that's really expendable. So thank you for coming and sharing. I'm always pushing the social justice piece, and maybe social justice is another type of performance. And I'm sure you can see that in your hip hop and in some of the performances kids create, So I think it's important to keep that front and center in these times as well, is how do we perform anti-racism? Because it's not, so that's just really part of, you got us thinking, you got me thinking. Thank you for being here. Thank you for collaborating. Thank you for the wonderful information. Thank you for your dedication to the program. And I know, Julie, you said you've been doing it for more than 30 years, and Dwayne at 11. So, I mean, it's obviously something that can keep people connected for as long as you're keeping them connected is really, really beneficial. So thank you for being here. And just wanted to let everybody know, thank you all for joining. Tomorrow, Terry Gips will be back, and he's talking about affluenza and basic needs, and how can we lead healthier, happier lives. And then Tunja will be here on Thursday talking about family literacy. And then Sarita and my sister, who is a nurse practitioner, we're going to be talking about how will COVID end on Friday. And this is just interactive in terms of just talking about the vaccine and how we're feeling about it, how communities are feeling about it, how people are feeling about it, and what's really going on with that. So looking forward to seeing you again. Monday we don't have a webinar because it's President's Day. And what would you like to amplify? Hashtag amplify coming out of this webinar. Hashtag amplify after school. Hashtag amplify all stars. It was very moving also when you had people in the first video saying, I'm an all-star. I'm an all-star. It's just fabulous, you know, have people identifying that way. It's great. Okay, and then last slide, I think, well, wear your mask. And then the last slide, moving on, is if you have a webinar that you'd like to host, just contact me. And thank you very much. Hashtag amplify growth, Elda says. Hashtag amplify development. Hashtag amplify performance, right? That's what I learned. Hashtag amplify community.
Beautiful.
Nice. Beautiful. Well, thank you very much, Julie and Dwayne. It was wonderful to have you. Great to learn about All Stars, and we appreciate your efforts and appreciate the way that you think about your success as well. So keep on keeping on.
Awesome. Thanks so much, everybody.
Nice to see everybody.